read about it later? How about we talk about it now? The Jimmy Barrett Show continues on KPRC 950.
Waiting on our guest. We're trying to reach her. Oh, we got her? Okay, good. I have been looking forward to talking to her, but I've also had, Bren, I'll be very honest, I've been dreading talking to her because her story is a very sad story. She lost her daughter. Her daughter's husband killed her. And that in and of itself is a terrible tragedy. But if you add to that the fact that he was a felon out on bond, then that just adds to the tragedy. Because it was pretty apparent something like this was on the table, could very well happen. And Melanie Infinger's daughter just wasn't protected. She joins us now here on AM 950 KPRC. How long ago did this happen, Melanie?
I'm sorry, what was that?
How long ago did this happen?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Yes, it actually happened. It was a year ago on August 3rd, so it's been just a little bit over a year.
Tell me about your daughter's. Let's start with your daughter, because I've seen pictures of her. She looks like she was a sweet, kind, loving human being. How did she end up with a husband like that?
She, like you said, was the most kind, the most compassionate, just such a bright girl. I mean, she was just the best mom. She had an 8-month-old at the time. Alexis, her daughter, was 8 months, and she was just, she was 20 years old, young, and just loved to love, and just really, just trusted, everyone. I mean, she was, I ask myself often, how she ended up with, such a monster. But to be quite honest with you, he was very much one of those people that, he wooed her and he blinded her. He said all the right things and did all the right things. Like whenever they first met, I mean, he went up. I mean, in her eyes, it was love, and in her eyes, it all happened really, really fast. And she had just never been treated so great as that was the act he put on. I mean, he absolutely had the narcissistic, manipulative way about him. Even to me at the beginning, he just went. It was just It was just crazy that now that we look back at it, but we saw the red flags pretty fast. We saw the red flags. My parents, even faster than I did, that something was really off with him, and that all the kindness that she thought was kindness and love were huge red flags. I mean, so and at that point, she wanted to believe the good in him, and yet it was a huge lie. He was a monster, beneath it all.
Now, when the murder occurred, I assume that they had been separated. He had been in jail. What was he in jail for?
She actually had him arrested. It's kind of crazy. She actually had called the cops on him because he had beat her. Had assaulted her. Had beat her up, and she went and stayed in a hotel. And when she came home from the hotel, had walked in on her cat had been tortured and killed and put in a bag of bleach. So she had immediately called the cops, for the cat. And then whenever they got there, they informed her, they called the DA, and the DA said, we can't arrest him for the cat. So she's like, well, then you're going to arrest him for assaulting me. And that's when she had him take pictures of the marks that she had on her face from when he had, he had assaulted her a few days before that. So they knew it, even though the charges weren't pressed for the cat, which, believe me, I have taken that upon, with the DA since. But they knew about the cat, and he was arrested, and essentially put in jail for the assault. on her before they released him.
So was that a felony charge, Melanie?
It would have. The cat would have been a felony charge, and that's what was just so mind-boggling. Yes, that was. It would have been, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So he gets out of jail on a PR, right? Personal recognizance bond?
Yeah, and that was the second one. He had just months prior, he was out on one for a DWI and hit and run. So this was the second PR bond he had gotten out on.
Okay. So he's a two-time offender. He's been out twice. Normally, in the old days in Harris County, if you had been involved in a DWI hit and run and you're out on bond and you got arrested again while you're out on bond, they'd revoke your bond. That would be normal. That's what they used to do. That would be normal. But that's not what happened. They let him loose. Did you obviously you were fearful of this guy, but did you have any inkling at all that he would do what he ended up doing to your daughter?
Yeah, sadly, that was my biggest fear. I mean, we knew he was abusive. He had already put her in the ER. Prior to this, we knew he was a monster, and I had, as any mother, begged her to leave him, and she just really thought, that she thought he would change, and she really, but you always say as a mom, I told her he's going to end up killing you, but you never really think it's going to happen. I mean, but the fact, with the cat, and I told her, like, people who kill animals kill people, and it scared me absolutely. And it was, she was pregnant. She was 16 weeks pregnant, and she finally, I felt like I was so proud of her because she finally, had him arrested. She finally stood up to him, and she, thought she was being protected. I was so proud of her for standing her ground. She had, totally ended it with him. She said, "Mom, he's in jail. Like, he's not getting out. He's facing a felony and 3 misdemeanors." We all thought he was not getting out. And then they literally, didn't just let him out. They let him out like on a PR bond. So I had never even heard of that before this happened. And it's so maddening, the fact that, and they wonder why women who are abused, are afraid to call the cops. Because the justice system absolutely failed her and just let him out with a slap on the wrist to finish what he had started.
Now, not that it would have made any difference or done any good, because I've seen it all the time, but was there a restraining order out against him?
There was a protective order. Yes.
Yeah, those get violated all the time. They're not worth the paper that they're written on. That doesn't protect anybody, as it turns out. Now, the crime happened. The murder of your daughter happened within 24 hours of him getting out of jail?
Yes, that's what's been told to me. I don't know the exact timestamp on it, but yeah, it was literally before the ink was dry. It's basically, he was, out, and before, I didn't even know he had even gotten out. By the time, whenever I got the call that, that he had murdered her, I didn't even know he was out of jail. That's how fast it happened. It was horrific.
So y'all didn't get any sort of a warning that they were letting him loose?
I did not get a warning. We don't know, and I probably won't know until the trial. To what extent, if she was notified. I know whenever she did have him arrested for the assault, they did give her the number, of Divine. I don't know, because I don't have like her phone records, or, we don't have a lot of the evidence to show if she got the phone call or if she knew. I really don't know. I just know that, we didn't know. I know she was scared. She was scared. I know she did voice that to me. I had just spoken to her that morning. And that night she was scared to be alone in her apartment. She was definitely fearful. But she didn't want to. I had her baby. She didn't, and I begged her to come home with me, but she didn't want to. She's like, "Mom, I got a plan. Everything's going to be okay." And she actually, her stepmom, who lives in Louisiana, they actually had just driven down to come be with her. I had the baby here, and ultimately, I think she was trying to protect her, Alexis, and not, come here because she knew that he would know that she was here if she came here. So I was, I had the baby, and so yeah, it's just it all
Melanie,
happened very, very fast.
Melanie, I'm so sorry for what you've gone through and what you've yet to go through, because that trial is going to be hell. It's going to be pure hell. I know it is. But I appreciate the fact of what you're trying to do to effectuate some change. Can you hang on? I got a little commercial break I have to work in here, but I want to come back with you and find out, what you hope to accomplish from this, and where we can all put pressure on Harris County and other Texas counties to stop doing this. Stop letting dangerous people back out into the streets. Can you hang on for me?
Absolutely.
Thank you. We'll be right back with Melanie Infinger here on AM 950 KPRC. It is 4:50 now, AM 950 KPRC. I appreciate so much that our guest is willing to highlight this. She's been through hell. She's lost a daughter at the hands of her estranged husband, who was out on a PR bond in Harris County. Even though he had been arrested before, even though he had a felony charge, 3 misdemeanor charges, and even though a reasonable person within the court system should have realized that this guy was a potential danger to not only society, but to Caitlynne, her daughter, specifically. Within 24 hours of getting out, her daughter was killed by this guy, who now will be facing a murder trial. Melanie, when is this trial supposed to be? Do you have a date yet on the trial?
We do not. I spoke to the DA not long ago, about a month ago, and she did inform me that it could be another year before we go to trial. She said, especially with COVID, it's kind of pushed things back a little bit too. So, we don't know. We have no idea.
Is this Kim Ogg you were talking to?
No. The DA that's working the case is Mary McFadden.
Okay. All right. Because obviously, there's been a few issues involving Kim Ogg as it relates to all this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, I know all about Kim Ogg.
I'm sure you do. You are one of 50 families basically that's had to go through something similar. We've had this happen over and over and over and over again, and personally, I don't understand the insanity of continuing to repeat the same mistake over and over again. It's like beating your head against a brick wall. What do you think it's going to take for the county to wake up to what it is that they're doing, putting their citizens in danger this way?
Gosh, it's mind-boggling. It really is. It's so angering to think that it has to. It's not just my daughter. This is, like you said, it happens. All the time. That we see people, being murdered by the. There's people out there that, criminals that have like 60 and 70 offenses, that are being let out on the streets to murder people. And it happens, and I'm seeing it all the time. And I often question, these elected officials, and it's like, how bad does it have to get? Is it going to have to be where it's one of their children? Before, that they can see. I don't know. It's like I feel like it's as bad as it, is going to get. It's gotten, and it's, yet nothing's changing. Nothing's changing at all. And so, which is why I have made it my mission, and I've absolutely channeled my grief into trying to change the law where, no one has to ever have to go through it, what my daughter went through and what, myself and my family live every day. This absolute nightmare, it has to be stopped. It has to be.
I'm looking at your Facebook page called Katelyns Law. Tell me what Katelyns Law is.
Okay, so Katelyns Law is mainly what we're looking at is absolutely, if someone is out on a PR bond like Alex was, they should not be given another PR bond. Like you had said earlier in the broadcast, they shouldn't be let out to commit more crimes and then be let out again. I mean, it's crazy. And then not just that, but if you are arrested for assault, you are a danger to society and you should be locked up. You should be held accountable. And basically what Katelyns Law is going to do is it's going to put accountability back into the system where these judges and these magistrates, are placing criminals, or keeping criminals in jail where they belong. I mean, not letting them out to, murder and rape and the list goes on. It's just accountability is not there. I mean, policemen are out there arresting, these, criminals and risking their lives, to arrest these criminals. And then basically within hours, magistrates and judges aren't looking at their history. They're not even looking at anything. I mean, they're just letting them out free, just like without having to pay a dime. It's crazy.
There is nobody more frustrated right now than the Houston Police Department over this. They have spoken out about it. The chief has spoken out about it, and the chief is not a very conservative person, generally speaking, but he's at least fairly conservative as it relates to crime, and he understands the insanity of what it is they're doing. I'm looking at the Facebook page, and I see the cutest little girl on this page.
Yeah.
Is that your granddaughter?
That is absolutely my angel. Like she is. That is Caitlyn's daughter, my granddaughter, Alexis. Yes.
She is precious.
Thank you.
She's amazing.
She's
and
my
you're
heart.
raising her.
Yes, I am. Actually, I am absolutely. And she looks just like Caitlyn, and I look at her every day, and Caitlyn just lives on through her, and she is her and my teenager. I have a teenager, Madison, who just turned 14. They keep me going, and they're just amazing.
Well, God bless you for what you're doing. I think there's nothing better. Grief is a difficult thing to deal with, but at least I think you're trying to find a very positive way to channel it. And if talking to you today convinces one more person to raise a stink, to try to get Harris County and the DA's office to do the right thing, and to stop and the judges to do the right thing, and to stop letting dangerous criminals back onto the streets on a PR bond, then it would have all been very, very, very well worth it. What kind of advice would you give our listeners as to how they can help get this message across?
Absolutely. We have a website, CaitelynsLaw.org, as well as we have the Katelyns Law Facebook page. Just spreading the word, spreading her story, and just showing their support. Like I said, through the Facebook page, especially because I keep everything on there, all my interviews, and the closer we get to election. We'll have more and more stuff on there on what everyone can do, but just spreading the story is, absolutely the main thing right now. And that would just be amazing. So that, and like you said, if we can just save one life, that's all I ask. We just need, this should never happen to anyone ever again.
Melanie, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate your time. I hope we get a chance to talk again, and whatever we can do to help, please feel free to call on us. Glad to do so.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You bet. Take care. Okay. Melanie Infinger. Wow. It's quite a story. CaitelynsLaw.org. Check out the website. Check out the Katelyns Law. Caitlyn spelled CAITLYNNE apostrophe S. Katelyns Law. And check out that grandchild. She's so cute. Least we can try to do is keep spreading the word. I hear stories like this, and it defies all common sense to me that we continue to do this over and over and over again, that we put the priority on letting hardened criminals out of jail instead of protecting the taxpaying public. It's their job, it's the judge's job, and the prosecutor's job to protect us. And they're not doing their jobs. Have yourself a great evening. See you tomorrow morning, bright and early at 5 a.m. on Houston's Morning News with Sheriff Fryer, back here at 3 on AM 950 KPRC.